Hi all, let's run through a couple of examples using our exponent rules. Our goal here will be to combine anything we can. So for example, combine all the constants, the 3 and the -2, combine anything with a base of w, combine anything with a base of y. And that means reducing fractions as well, canceling where you can. And we would like to try and always write these without negative exponents. So those are our big rules. I do want to point out that this is a lot more wide open because there's no addition or subtraction in the mix. Exponents and multiplication and division are all really closely related in your order of operations. Also, exponents mean multiplication, so they're just really closely related in general. Once you throw addition in there, you have to start being really cautious with your order of operations. So as soon as you see a plus minus in the mix, pause and be very careful. For now, we don't have that, so there's a lot of flexibility as to what you do first in some of these problems, and that can be frustrating, but also just take it as it's a lot harder to do something wrong as your first step when there's so many options for what's right. Here, there's not a ton going on, so I don't think there's too much confusion. This is a multiplication problem, so remember you can rearrange this however you want and you don't have to write this down. But in my head I'm thinking I'm going to group together the 3 and the -2. I will also group the w cubed and the w squared, and I will group the y and the y cubed. And again, this usually kind of happens in my head, but I just want to write it out as we're getting started on these. When I go ahead and do the multiplication, 3 times -2 is -6. With the w's, again, there's a rule. It says add exponents, but I think it's even more important to think about this as I have 3 w's, and then I multiply in another 2 w's, so that's a grand total of w to the 5th, 5 factors of w. And similarly with the y's, if I have a lone y, a y to the 1, and then I multiply by 3 more, that's going to be a total of 4 factors of y. The factors part's important. This is only true for multiplication, but that is a y to the 4th. The next one mixes in some parentheses that will make us think a little bit about order of operations. It also mixes in some negative exponents. So here's where you start to get some choices as to what happens first. You can either, I'm sure there's more, but the two that jump out at me is you could cube everything in the first set of parentheses and raise everything in the second set to the -2. You could also deal with the negative exponents first by making anything with a negative power into a reciprocal. I think I'm going to run the powers through. I'm going to get rid of parentheses first, but this is not your only choice. So I need to cube the -2. -2 cubed is -8. And then I need to cube m to the -1. This is where thinking of the rules more as the rules can be helpful, knowing that you need to multiply, because it can be a little bit weird to think about, okay, if I have m to the -1 times m to the -1 times m to the -1, what does that mean? I think I'll write a step in here so that we can be careful with that 8 to the -2. I just went ahead and did the arithmetic for the first set of parentheses, but here I want to make sure I don't make any mistakes. M to the 12 to the -2 becomes m to the -24. My next step, I'm going to go ahead and deal with all those negative exponents, remembering that a negative exponent means reciprocal. So this is really 1 over m cubed, 1 over 8 squared, and 1 over m to the 24. And now I think I'll write an over 1 so that I remember to line things up right. Let's push this into a single fraction. Again, there are other options for what you would do next. That's what I'm choosing to do next. So I have -8. On the bottom, I can clean that up a little as I go. I'm going to move the 8 squared out in front and say, really, that's a 64. And then I have an m cubed times an m to the 24, which if you're comfortable, you can combine those in that same step. I'm just going to save it up once. I see 2 things I'd like to do right now. I'd like to cancel an 8 out. 8 divided by 8 is 1. 64 divided by 8 is 8. I'd also like to go ahead and do this step now. If I have 3 m's written out, multiplied together, and then I multiply by another 24 of them. That's a grand total of 27 m's in the denominator. So I have a -1 in the top and an 8m to the 27 in the bottom. So you do want to be a little careful when we start getting these parentheses is when people start to have some errors get in the mix.